Laura Tatsuguchi Davis was a nurse and young mother of twins living in California when a stranger knocked on her door. He was an older man, mid-60s or so, and with great effort had tracked Laura and her mother down. He had a box of trinkets with him, souvenirs from World War II, and wondered if any might belong to her Japanese father who had passed a long time ago. Laura's mom was disturbed and left the room, leaving Laura with this nervous stranger. Unable to speak with her mother, the man walked out to his car. Laura followed.
He turns around and over his shoulder he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm the man who killed your father." And he gets in his car and drives away. Laura Davis is rocked. She's never met her father. She knows her father really only as pictures on a wall. In fact, her father was Paul Tatsuguchi, the man killed on Attu by Dick Laird, the war hero.
So writes Mark Obmascik, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author of The Storm on Our Shores, One Island, Two Soldiers, and the Forgotten Battle of World War II. Obmascik actually came across this incredible story by accident.
I actually found out about this book, The Storm on Our Shores, while I was researching my first book, The Big Year. The Big Year was about competitive birding, of all things. How many species of birds can you see in North America in 1 year? And a lot of that book took place on this island called Attu, which is the westernmost island in the Aleutian chain. It's farther west than Fiji. It's so far out there they actually curved the international day line around it to keep North America on the same calendar page. And when I was researching the bird book, I learned that this island, Attu, had been invaded and conquered by the Japanese during World War II.
That would seem to be a story in and of itself. A World War II battle on American soil where more than 500 American soldiers and 2,000 Japanese soldiers lost their lives. But virtually no one's heard of it? The story, however, gripped Obmascik for a different reason, and that was the two main characters in the tale.
Paul Nobuo Tatsuguchi is a Hiroshima native who came to the United States for college and for med school. He went to Loma Linda University in Southern California, interned at White Memorial Hospital in Los Angeles, and Paul fell in love with America. He loved the open spaces and the open road. His girlfriend came over from Japan, and he proposed to her at Yosemite National Park. For their honeymoon, they actually took off on one of the first Greyhound bus trips from Los Angeles to Niagara Falls. There's not much more American thing that you can do than spend a honeymoon at Niagara Falls, especially back then. When he returned, though, there was a family crisis, and he had to rush back with his wife to Japan, and that's when Pearl Harbor happened. And so he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and was conscripted against his will to fight for the Japanese army against the United States, the nation he loved.
Tatsuguchi had seen the power and might of the United States firsthand. He thought the Japanese government was crazy, that the whole declaration of war against the United States was an insane idea. And yet,
he was really torn. He was torn between his duty to his country, his duty to his family, and he was also really a devout Christian, a Seventh-day Adventist. He was a pacifist. I mean, if he were an American, he would have been granted a conscientious objector status because he was morally opposed to war. Now, they didn't believe in that in Japan, and so he was conscripted, and so he had to reconcile his own faith with his own duty, serving in the Imperial Army of Japan. But he was able to do that because he was a surgeon, and he told himself that he was there to heal and not to fight.
Meanwhile, in the coal mining hills of Appalachia, 17-year-old Dick Laird enlisted in the United States Army, believing it's his ticket out of poverty. After the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor, Laird lands on the remote Attu Island, which has been captured by the Japanese.
At the Battle of Attu, Dick Laird did what his country asked him to do. He was a ferocious soldier. And so one morning he wakes up and finds that the American mortar above him has been captured by this group of Japanese. They are spinning it around so that the American mortar does not point at the Japanese, but they're spinning it around to go back on the United States troops. And so Laird knows that he's got to stop it, throws a grenade, throws another, and then goes up and ends up finding that he's killed 8 men.
The Army awarded Laird the Silver Star for valor in combat, only Laird didn't feel courageous. Instead, for decades to come, he was haunted by what he found among the dead.
He finds an address book full of names from California, and he finds this, what turns out to be a diary written in Japanese. So he's in the middle of prosecuting the war. He throws the sheets of the diary in his pocket in the hopes that it might have some top secret military information, and sends it to the back lines to be translated. And it turns out that there was no key strategic military information in that diary, but instead it was the inner thoughts of a surgeon on the Japanese side trying to do surgeries, do amputations in a cave while being bombed by American troops.
Tatsuguchi wrote about his young wife and children, about how much he loved and missed them. He wrote about how terrified he was, and wondered why he was fighting on a treeless spit of land that had the worst weather on Earth.
In war, it's easy to kill an enemy, but it's really hard to kill a man. And so Paul Tatsuguchi's diary was recovered, and it went on the World War II version of going viral. It was passed from soldier to soldier, American soldier to American soldier, because for many Americans, it was kind of their first look at what the enemy was really like, who was the enemy. And I think to the horror, or at least the questioning of a lot of U.S. soldiers, the enemy wasn't that different than they were.
Dick Laird wanted forgiveness for killing a family man who loved America.
He had done better than his country had asked, and yet he couldn't convince himself that he had done the right thing. And so he really wanted to meet the consequences of his actions. He went to meet the daughter of Paul Tatsuguchi, but he was nervous and he panicked, I think, and left. And that began this terrific journey for Laura Tatsuguchi Davis, who had always known how her father had died, but she had never known how he lived. She had never met her father. Her mom was pregnant when Paul was shipped off to war. And so she went on a long journey to investigate her own family and to learn about her father and where she came from.
Along this journey, Laura reconnected with the man who had shown up at her doorstep all those years back. The two had lunch recurringly over the years, not just talking about the Battle of Attu, but also catching up on each other's lives. Looking from the outside in, you'd never know the true history between Laura and Dick Laird. You can read about this transcendence to forgiveness in the book The Storm on Our Shores by Mark Obmascik, available now. You can learn more about all of our guests by visiting our website at viewpointsonline.net and subscribe and listen to our show on iTunes and Google Play. Our writer-producer for this segment is Polly Henson. I'm Gary Price.
June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and the Alzheimer's Association is joining forces with the Ad Council in a new campaign, encouraging families to talk about memory loss and other potential warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. Ruth Drew, Director of Information and Support Services for the Alzheimer's Association.
Close family members are typically the first to notice memory issues or cognitive problems, but they are often hesitant to say something, even when they know something is wrong. This new campaign is aimed at empowering families to have these conversations before a crisis occurs.
Titled Our Stories, the new campaign targets family members and features real stories, encouraging people to notice the signs, trust their gut, and start a conversation. It's an essential first step on the path toward managing disease-related changes. Families can start with ABC, assess changes, begin a conversation, and contact the Alzheimer's Association for help at alz.org/ourstories.
Hi, I'm Diane Guerrero, and while orange is still the new black, oranges and fresh fruit help nourish communities and provide oxygen for clean air. That's why I dig fruit trees. And I'm planting alongside VitaFusion Gummy Vitamins and the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation to plant 200,000 fruit trees, generating 28 million pieces of nutrient-rich fruit and 33 million pounds of oxygen, so people can breathe easier, improve the soil quality, and make a positive impact on our planet for generations to come. Visit WeDigFruitTrees.com.
Trying to sell your old car? Instead, donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind. Pickup is free and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-835-1478. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats, whether they run or not. Donate your vehicle and you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call 1-800-835-1478. That's 1-800-835-1478.
Thank you for listening to Viewpoints Radio, a production of Media Tracks Communications. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please support our show by subscribing, sharing it with a friend, and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find more Viewpoints stories on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and viewpointsonline.net. Also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Viewpoints Radio.